Today we are discussing the topic of connecting services to families during lockdown and economic hardship. To kick off the conversation, I will pass the mic over to Kathy Ulrich.
Hey everybody, good afternoon. I'm going to talk about three different things. I'm going to talk about the communities and schools traditional model and the reasoning why we have to do some serious shifting as school buildings are closed. I'm going to talk about how we're supporting families while school buildings are closed and do a brief update with how things are looking right now. So Victor, if you could please bring up the SISWA model. And I realize it is kind of a small photo. I don't know if it's possible to make it any bigger. So yes, very pretty. So Communities and Schools works inside of schools, and our site coordinators work with school staff to identify students who need extra non-academic supports. And our site coordinators work with students to determine what those barriers are, and they collaborate with community partners to address those barriers. And we work with students one-on-one to monitor their success and to make adjustments throughout the school year. And then the mentor program is part of how we support students to address those non-academic barriers to success, because obviously every student we work with would highly benefit from a mentor relationship. So that's what our supports look like traditionally, all based inside of a school building with school staff around all the time. Victor, can you pop up the other file, the one called school closure support?
So Kathy, a quick question.
Yeah.
When you're in the schools and the site coordinators too, I mean, so it looked like you have staff or some parts of your program that are already doing other services to families, like the collaborative partners on the top?
Correct.
Okay.
That's correct. So now that school buildings are closed, our site coordinators are obviously working from home. Students are all at home. Teachers are all at home. And as we were talking earlier, you know, there's a wealth of resources and a wealth of support, but it is hard to navigate that sometimes. And the students we work with are all experiencing poverty of some sort or low income status, as well as other sorts of barriers. Some families don't have access to internet, much less laptops or things of that nature. So what our site coordinators do is they call families once a week. They do a one-on-one check-in to provide social emotional support. They assess what those needs are currently. They change generally from week to week. They work with students to find out, you know, what their needs are aside from school work and school support. And a lot of what we're doing with those one-on-one phone calls, they were originally intended to assess needs, and currently a lot of those phone calls are really just emotional support for families, which is totally fine. So our site coordinators are also working as social workers right now.
What kind of training do they have for that, Kathy? I'm sorry.
Well, oh sure, no, most of our site staff actually do have some social work experience, either social work schooling or past history working in that area. So it's not entirely foreign to them to do that. So in addition to assessing needs, we also act as a community connector. And so those resources, those government resources, those organizational resources, you know, they're growing every day, which is fantastic. And they're also changing every day. So our staff and our admin staff, our executive director and program manager, work really hard to keep abreast of all the different resources that are out there that are changing all the time. And so as we assess what family needs are, we continue to connect them to those resources. So if they need support with utility support, rental support, healthcare support, etc., we connect them to those resources. Another thing we do is we coordinate weekly food, weekend food. So the students we work with, you know, they all get the free and reduced lunches from their schools, but from the schools, they would also receive weekend food bags. And the schools are not able to support those donations anymore. And so those donations come to our office, and we have volunteers who drive out and deliver weekend food bags to make sure the family is still getting that weekend food support that they need. And then big thing we've done is we started our emergency fund. And so about 5 weeks ago, we started an emergency fund taking donations from the community. And we are providing grocery gift cards, Fred Meyer gift cards. We've also paid some utilities, like before families are able to get connected to longer term utility support or longer term rental support. We have paid a couple of rents, we've paid some utility bills, we've paid some phone bills. And those are meant for, one-time support measures to tide a family over until they get larger supports and longer term supports. So we've gone through about half of our resources so far, which is not bad for 5 weeks. We still have enough in reserves. And so we are helping families that way. And so to get kind of a snapshot of what we've been able to provide in the first 4 weeks, Victor, if you could bring up the emergency fund update slide. There we go. So in the first 4 weeks, we have doled out almost $26,000. We supported 196 families, mostly with food, grocery cards, but also with rent, utilities, and some cell phone support. And so that's kind of what we've been doing is like, I don't know, if you think of communities and schools as like this box of supports, we've now pretty much had to open the box, turn it upside down, and shake everything out. And so all the supports are kind of all over the place, and we're just connecting families as best we can. So that's what we're doing right now. And then in the chat box I see is Renton Tukwila, or is it CIS statewide? So Communities and Schools is a national organization, and so we are the Renton Tukwila affiliate. And I see Rotem is on the call, and she is at the Kent affiliate. And so, hey Rotem. So the cool thing about Communities and Schools being a national organization is that it provides some really in-depth programming and some really rigorous model that we need to adhere to, but because we can all be local affiliates, we can really dive deeply into our individual communities and really use those resources to best support our unique community needs. So what's needed in Renton and Tukwila might be different than Kent, might be different than Spokane. My sister lives in Kansas. The Communities and Schools in Kansas does something very different than out here. So yeah, so it's cool. It's a nice combination of big organization support, but small organization flexibility. So
my question, Kathy, is that $25K from Renton Tukwila CIS alone? Is it statewide?
Yes. Nope, that's Renton Tukwila.
That's a lot. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So the community has risen up in a really great way. Yeah. Thanks, Victor.
Thank you so much, Kathy.
Yeah.
Moving forward, we go to Bailey Wooten from Youth Mentoring Program, Gonzaga University.
Hello, everyone. So I work at Gonzaga, like Victor said, in our Center for Community Engagement. And so we house youth mentoring programs as well as other programs and really serve to kind of manage and connect a lot of the university with our community. And so with our youth mentoring programs, we function as more of a school-based model. Most of our programs take place at our partner schools during the school day, but mostly after school, other than one which takes place on Gonzaga's campus. But again, it functions similarly. So one part of that is that our mentors, which are Gonzaga students, don't have all the contact information of their kids and families. And so our staff obviously do, but that impacts a little bit what our response has been and will be, although also giving us a lot to consider moving forward. So two parts I thought I'd speak to. One is just connecting directly with the youth in our programs. Is my internet okay? I just got
a little chopped, but it's okay enough.
Okay. So one thing that we have been doing is having our mentors write letters or emails to the youth. That's really more of the social emotional support though. And that's facilitated through our staff, and really geared a little bit more towards closure than connecting to resources. We've had our staff calling our youth mentees as well to check in and see how they're doing. So kind of similar to what Kathy spoke to. Again, that being more social emotional support. We have had, so one of our mentoring programs is called Eye to Eye. It's part of a national organization, and it is a chapter-based model that pairs college students that have learning disabilities or ADHD with youth that have a thing takes place kind of in a group setting. And arts are it's like an arts-based curriculum. So the mentors are some of the different pieces of having a learning difference, all through an arts-based curriculum. So it's a really unique and neat program. But we've had some of the youth in that program ask for the art projects to be sent home that they would typically be doing after school each week with their mentors. And so we have some staff working on that to see if we can send home some of those projects to the kiddos. So that's been one piece, but the main area that we have been connecting is really through our schools and our nonprofit partners. It's a lot of it is around food distribution. So all of this is done obviously with a lot of caution and making sure that we have the minimal number of people that are out in the community and practicing physical distancing and all of that. But we work with our communities and schools. So our site coordinators at our middle schools and our high school, we work with a lot. So that's been a lot of the work that we've been doing. But again, most of it's been around food access and distribution. And so in mid-March, Gonzaga moved online for the remainder of the semester to deliver classes online, which means we have very few students here at Gonzaga. And we have Sodexo is our food provider, our on-campus dining, and they typically produce a lot of food for our students. We also have a campus kitchens program in our office, which in a normal week takes food from the campus and repurposes that leftover food and repurposes that back into the community. So we already have that existing relationship with our on-campus dining and some partnerships set up in place to deliver the food. But with students moving online, we've been working with Sodexo. We were able to get some funding to provide grab-and-go meals for adults. So this and actually most of our efforts are really structured around the free and reduced lunch meals that are happening Monday through Friday at our local schools. And so a lot of the support here is happening during those distributions, not just through Gonzaga, but through other partners. So right now we're doing about 1,000 meals a week split between two of our schools, which are Sodexo, our on-campus dining, is preparing those, and then we deliver those to the schools and they're handing those out to adults, so the adults can get food as well, knowing that the distribution from the schools is 0 to 18-year-olds. So that's been one thing that we've been doing. Sodexo has also decided to use, we have a hydroponic greenhouse that produces mostly fresh greens. Typically that goes to our students, and that is being repurposed and that production kept up so that it can go back to the community. I see Janet's question. One thing I forgot to mention is that a lot of these efforts, so like the first connecting with our youth mentees is really specific to the kids that are in our programs. This piece I've been talking about now is really supporting our schools, and so not nearly as direct. We do have our kids that are accessing the food and these supports, but that's not really the focus as much as it is like the entire families that go to the schools. We have been doing this is kind of the one difference is our Bike to Go home deliveries. And so at one of our middle schools, we're a sponsor of Bike to Go, which is the weekend, one of Spokane's weekend backpack food home delivery. The backpacks of food that gets sent home over the weekend. And so we partner with communities in schools and the middle school for this program.
You're chopping.
And so we have a staff member that's helping with the home deliveries. Okay. Okay, that might help. So, so we've been working to do home deliveries for our Bike to Go families. Many of those kids are in our mentoring programs because we share a lot of the same kiddos with communities and schools. So several of the kids that are on the caseloads are the kids in our mentoring programs. And so we're partnering with them to get the food delivered to the homes of the kids. Fresh and frozen school distribution. This is just started last week with our local food bank. And so they're setting up more mass distributions at the schools during the same distribution time when families are headed to the schools, just to send more food home. So we're going to be taking leads starting Friday at one of the schools with those efforts. And then we do a weekly dinner during the, well, we do it all year round, but it's at one of our partner elementary schools. And it's really a place for families to build community. It addresses food insecurity, but also strategically happens right after one of our mentoring programs ends. And so it's a place where on a normal Tuesday evening, the families, the kids, when they come back from the mentoring program, and the mentors or student leaders can go and be in community together. Through those meals, we often have additional partners that come and provide resources. So that's, again, what would normally happen. So we've switched that to be a grab and go meal as well. And so the food is still going out, but the additional services aren't happening in the way that they would. And then the final piece has been some of the essential supplies like toilet paper, feminine hygiene products. We're able to, our supply chain and our contracts are pretty decent through Gonzaga, so we're able to get some of those goods fairly easily and for a pretty reasonable cost. And so we've done some purchasing through our purchasing department on campus and getting those out to our community partners and our schools, again, to be handed out at the same time that the food is. And so it's funny, Kathy, that you mentioned the campaign. Our communities and schools here just started it recently, but we're going to be working with them to purchase some of the supplies just so that we can get it at a good deal and quickly, hopefully.
Okay.
So yeah, again, mostly around food and essential services more broadly, but definitely reaching some of our kiddos. And I was at a meal drop-off a few weeks ago because they take the Tuesday meals, the dinners from our campus to the school, and saw one of the kids that's involved in one of our mentoring programs in our walking school bus, and it was from a distance and like probably 20 feet away, and her grandmother was like, "Don't get close," and I clearly was not moving towards her at all, and nor was this little girl, but good to see even from 20 plus feet away. But yes, we've got lots of, I think I'll pull up the chat. Yeah, lots of people picking up the food. Okay. Lots of concern. I know there is everywhere that just is a growing need, and lots of families that are accessing food banks that haven't before. And so really, I mean, with the National Guard has been helping recently here in Spokane and at the local food bank. So they're able to get, as long as they have food coming in and that supply chain continues, they're able to get more ready to go, which is why they're relying on partners to do some of the distribution. But our Bike to Go, that supply chain has been really tricky because for like that one in particular is connected to one of our grocery store suppliers. So lots of details, but figuring out ways to continue. even if the food changes and what it looks like is a little bit different.
Thank you very much, Bailey. Right. Okay, do we have any questions that I didn't see, Janet?
Not for me. I think you saw all of my questions.
Oh, okay, wonderful. Moving forward, we have Liz Doan from Funhouse Commons. Did I pronounce that right, Liz? Wonderful. Okay, let me unmute you.
Yes, you did. That's correct. Thank you, Victor.
Mhm.
All right. Hello, everybody. I am the program director over at the Funhouse Commons on Orcas Island in the San Juans. And our wonderful mentor program coordinator, Peggy, couldn't join us because Tuesdays are her resupply days for her pet store that she owns and operates on the island. So she's unable to join us today. But yeah, so some of the things that we've been doing, I'll kind of talk about the Funhouse in general and then our mentor program specifically. The Funhouse is a community center for kids 0 to 18 years old. So we serve the critical needs of the community. And when the pandemic hit and the stay-at-home orders arrived, we noticed that we kind of had a fortunate experience where we have so many nonprofits on the island that many of the nonprofits like immediately went into overdrive and got programs started within a matter of days, if not hours, really, when everything started happening. And one of them was a community foundation that set up an Orcas Recovers site. And so that wound up being the site where anybody that had things to offer, whether it was volunteering or masks or produce, things like that, they could go on to Orcas Recovers and share. It was also a site where Orcas Recovers was doing some fundraisers for other nonprofits that were doing actions and activities. So like our meal distribution program that's happening through the school, and a couple others. And then it was also a place for folks to go if they needed anything, if they were having trouble making rent or encountering, you know, any food insecurities, things like that, they could go to the same site. So that was really great that Orcas just immediately created a hub. And so we also noticed that the school on its own created a meal distribution program for any family on the island, any child on the island. So it wasn't just a public school student that was able to get meals. It's every family that signs up for them can get meals for their children every day of the week and then get weekend packages. So the school has been phenomenal with doing that. And so we at the Funhouse kind of experienced this situation of, okay, well, a lot of routes and avenues are being covered quickly, and we don't want to take away or deter or, you know, make it messier trying to be an additional service for a service that was already being provided. So we essentially turned into conduits. And so one of the things, the first thing that we did was, you know, get people connected to Orcas Recovers, and we actually assigned one of our wonderful after-school staff members to be that person, that if they heard anything through Orcas Recovers that, you know, people needed assistance, then they would alert us and our volunteers at the Funhouse to go and get that support and get that help. So we actually, you know, have been, you know, grocery shopping for folks and delivering meals to folks, or, you know, doing remote drop-offs, just kind of a hodgepodge of things to help our community. And then something that the Funhouse did probably within the, I think it was within the first week, it's all kind of a blur. But within the first week, we just made the decision that, okay, we've got all of these arts and craft supplies. We've got all of these. We had recently received a huge donation of arts and crafts kits, of like little wooden kits or little science kits that you can, you know, build or paint or create. And so we had upwards of about 120 of these craft kits. as well as a large amount of arts and crafts supplies, watercolor, paints, pretty much anything you could think of, Sculpey clay, all sorts of stuff. And so we were like, well, instead of having them collect dust, we're getting them out to the families. So we created fun kits. And basically this was before the stay-at-home order was put in place. So what we did was we took one person, representative from a family at a time, to come into the Funhouse, where I had things set up according to age groups, and then everything was labeled. So this family member could come in and go to whichever table fit in their age range, and then they were able to come in and, you know, take at least a kit and a game and craft piles and things like that for families. And Janet asked, say something about our fabulous donated facility. Okay.
When you say Funhouse, I don't think people really get the scope of what your fabulous, unbelievable facility is, Liz.
Thank you very much. Yes. So the Funhouse Commons is our full name. We abbreviate it to just the Funhouse. But yes, we are almost 20 years old, and it was started by this gentleman, Jim Brado, who it originally started as a teen center, and it was a combination of a teen after school like hangout place, but also it was like an interactive museum-esque kind of feel to it. So we had like a wave tank and a shadow room and a pitching cage, and we had a yurt in the middle of the building that was our art yurt, and had some rock climbing walls up the side.
Recording studio.
Yes, and it's phenomenal. And we remodeled within the last year and a half, because there were so many kind of darker enclosed places, and it was harder for line of sight. So we opened up the whole building, got rid of the exhibits, turned a couple of our exhibit rooms into a major arts and crafts room, a lot of open floor layouts, a lot of Legos, interactive toys that kids can play with. And for the most part, our biggest program by far is the after school program, where we have kids on average ages 6 to 12 come in, and we'll encounter about like 50 or so kids in every day. And it's a lot for the community members. And then we also, you know, have various programs and things that we're trying to keep alive at the moment. So yeah, we've got an amazing center, and have really received a lot of amazing donations, and a lot of it is donation based. And we're kind of the place that people go to dump any and every kind of art supply they could imagine that they do not want. And I usually wind up taking all of it. So it's great. We've had a great pile, and actually we served 76 families and 123 children of various ages in our first round of fun kits. And people were walking out with boxes of stuff. We had an amazing amount of stuff. And we actually are going to do another round since school is out for the remainder of the year. We've heard from one of the things that we've been doing along with Kathy and Bailey is doing that social emotional, check-ins and wellness, seeing how our families are doing, and seeing if there's, anything that we can connect them to that they need. And a lot of things that we've been hearing is that they're bored and need some art supplies, running out of things to do around the house, driving people nuts, kind of things like that. So we're going to do another round this time, just pre-package all sorts of art supplies, set them out in our parking lot, allowing for people to come by and take what they need. So that'll be something that we're doing within the next couple of weeks. We're probably going to do a survey first to see kind of what exactly it is that the community needs with the demographics, and also asking them about, just kind of what they need. And then also if, in the off chance, or I guess it's relatively likely that we won't have our summer camp operating the way that we usually operate. And so trying to figure out what the families would like. It may be hard for them to know what they want, but what they would like to see, or how they would envision their ideal funhouse in these times, so that we can deliver things in the fun kits that they need. So that's something that we're working on. Another thing that we're doing, we called the families, we've been calling the families, and then we have been donated a 3D printer within, I think it was 5 years ago. I personally have worked at the Funhouse for 2 years now, and somebody asked me, what do we do with this? Do you want it? And I said, heck yeah, I would love to have a 3D printer and do programming, things like that. But now we're printing face shields. So we've partnered with somebody in the community that has the rest of the materials, and we're printing off CDC recommended face shields and getting those out to our community members, fire departments, police departments, and our wonderful healthcare workers. And we actually are encountering that there are quite a few kind of cells and pockets of people that have been making masks, and so we're encountering that Orcas Island in particular is feeling relatively set with materials for our healthcare workers, which is very fortunate. Thank you. So that's what we've been doing as well. Another thing that we started before the stay-at-home order, we had a wonderful volunteer / Funhouse parent come to us saying, I need to keep myself busy. I want to do something. How do we support the community? Here's an idea. Let's create an online scavenger hunt. And so it's the Funhouse Commons, YMCA Camp Orkila, which is also on the island, as well as this one parent volunteer, have created a Facebook-based Orcas Island scavenger hunt, in parentheses, COVID compliant, and we have a website, which is orcasislandscavengerhunt.com. And so that's, that website is where people can go and enter in challenges and ideas for challenges that they have. It's also a place where local artists can create art and send it in for our weekly merit badges. It's where people can sign up to be a wisdom keeper, which means volunteers will create a challenge based on some really cool island history or knowledge that they have that they'd like to share that teams connect with. And so the wisdom keepers will share the hours of operation that they have or their business hours, and then teams can call in. And when I say teams, it doesn't mean that it's specific to just whoever is sheltering in place together. It's actually multiple families are on the same team, but they just coordinate between themselves who's going to compete or complete a specific challenge. And so it kind of creates that smaller sense of community within 3 to 4 families at a time, but then it creates that real community engagement with our artists, our mentors, our wonderful folks, you know, our Funhouse families, anybody that really wants to get involved, and it's not specific just to Funhouse members. So that's been great. We've got about 30 participants, 6 teams. We just did a challenge to add team members. And so now everybody's teams have grown, and there's multiple, there's new faces, which is great. We're on week 4. So we were kind of starting to see a little bit of a lull. So we've kind of upped it a little bit more. So that's a big thing. And then that's something that we've been really recommending to our mentor program pairs. We have 32 mentor pairs right now. And we've been suggesting that that's a really cool way for them to get involved, and a mentor pair could join a team. We also, since we're on week 4, we do scoring from week to week, but then we do a cumulative score, but then we also encourage anybody that just wants to participate one-off challenges, or, you know, find a challenge and just say like, oh, this would be cool to do. Why don't we do it? So we're really trying to push that in the mentor program as well.
Thank you so much, Liz. Just for time's sake, and you are awesome, I appreciate you sharing everything. I wanted to make sure that Kayleen had a moment to share.
Oh, apologies. Yeah, that's about it. I guess the rest is we're trying to connect with mentors. Our mentor program coordinator checks in with our mentors and still maintains that like check-in monthly, check-in weekly. People are still hard to get in touch with. They were hard to get in touch with before the pandemic. They're hard to get in touch with now. So we're still, trying to maintain that correspondence. We've sent out cards to all of our mentors and mentees from Peggy. She handmade all of them. And then we recently sent out a letter just saying, hey, we're still here. We're still operating. We're still thinking of you. Here are our core values that we still think about and carry with us every day. We know that it's hard to maintain an hour's connection each week. So, really emphasizing every connection is meaningful and positive. And so we're encouraging our mentors to just stay connected.
Thanks, Liz.
Mm-hmm. And then I wanted to pass the mic to Kayleen Chung from Community for Youth. Thanks, Kayleen.
Yeah, hi guys. I'm Kayleen. I'm the program manager at Community for Youth. We work more in the South Seattle end and work with a bunch of the South Seattle public high schools in that area and run a mentoring program. We're a really, really small org. We have 3 full-time staff, and then the rest of our team are just AmeriCorps members and MSW. So we've really done a really great job of just trying to connect our program participants with actual other resources in the area instead of kind of flooding them with more resources. And so in a lot of our match support conversations that we've been having with the students and with the mentors as well, we've been really trying to help kind of narrow down specific needs and then connecting them directly with another agency or another organization that's maybe doing the work already. So we're all about trying to empower other organizations around us and trying to connect them with that. So that's kind of our main method of doing outside resources, but we're also doing a lot of things internally. So match support is a really big one. So we've increased a lot of our check-in times. We've been doing check-ins once a month, but we've kind of increased that a little bit. And so between myself and the team, we've kind of had the opportunity of touching base with all of our students' parents, and their mentors. And so we're kind of doing a really kind of like a juggling act, just who's touched base with who. And we have a bunch of spreadsheets so we make sure we're not cross checking in, which can sometimes be irritating for the students. But they love to hear our voices and they love to kind of check in. So right now what we're also working on is doing care packages. And Liz, you kind of talked about how a lot of the students are going a little stir crazy, driving other people crazy. So we're kind of coming up with a way that we can kind of just show our face and just be hey, we're still here. We still think about you guys. We're here if you need anything, but here's some stuff to kind of keep you occupied. Here's some candy, just kind of all that kind of good stuff. And then another thing that we've noticed too, with a lot of the students that we work with and their demographics specifically, a lot of them are home alone, at the end of the day or kind of just during that dinner time of day, whether their parents are working at, other jobs or whatever's going on with their home life. And so what we try to do is host these happy hours. And so we're doing these happy hours for the students so that they can jump on the call so they're not alone for 2 hours of their day and they can just kind of hang out. So my staff is coming up with different games that we can play remotely, virtually. We've been doing Pictionary. We've been doing I Spy. So we're all looking at each other's screens and seeing something that we can pick out and just play I Spy that way. And that's been really fun with the students. So just kind of trying to find different avenues for them to kind of escape kind of their own reality and kind of engage more in interpersonal relationships, which seem to really have helped kind of their connection with each other, with us, and then with their mentors. And so that's been really cool to see. And we're also kind of using that as a recruitment method too, because this is kind of the time of year where we're really recruiting for the next academic year. And so we're kind of trying to find ways to incorporate what we need out of it, but then also kind of providing that safe space for the students to be able to log on to a call, hang out while they do their homework or while they eat, or, just to have that kind of interaction and connection. And then, so a big thing too, sorry, I'm just kind of hitting all the bullet points and just being mindful of time, is the match closure ceremony is a really big part. I don't know I think everyone's, different programs kind of know the importance of closing down a match and what that means to honor matches throughout their year and all that stuff. And so one thing that we really kind of came up with, which is kind of exciting, is TikTok. So we're asking all of our mentors to create like a TikTok video honoring their student and talking, it also works out because TikTok has these like rules and regulations, like only 60 seconds. So it kind of saves us from watching 5-minute videos or 5-minute clips of each mentor rambling about their student, and not rambling, but saying, nice supportive things that we love to hear. But just kind of having some kind of time constraint on it. But it also makes it really relevant for the students to feel like they can just jump onto their app and just like look at the TikToks. And it also is a great way to connect our community. Because we've been really great about connecting individually, but how do we create that umbrella where we're connecting the whole community together? Because that's a big part of why a lot of students and mentors join our program specifically. And so TikTok is a really great way of kind of sharing that familiarity, kind of like, I don't know if you guys watch SNL, Saturday Night Live, but a couple weeks ago they did like an at-home one, and that was just really cool to be able to see like the vulnerability of someone being in their home space, but then also doing like normal life things. And so it kind of helps normalize things for the students, especially since everything has gone online for them and for us as well. But just kind of coming down to their level and doing that, which has created a really fun way. Also, I'm like trying to gain up the courage to create my own TikToks for the students, but I'm also just like, I'm like, I feel really old to be doing this, so this feels weird. Hey, Keelan, can the kids see the group of other kids? Yes. So we definitely tell the students, like, come on, we want to see your faces, we miss you, but don't feel like you have to like be on the screen all the time. So sometimes they'll turn off their video, but we can still hear them. And that's a really great way for them to just kind of pick and choose, because I think being in front of a screen is a lot for people and a lot for students. But I think we've been able to see a lot more participation because I think this generation specifically feels more comfortable being behind a screen as opposed to having an in-person interaction. And so I think it's just more of trying to figure out how you can make it work for your program specifically, so that it's enriching it as opposed to taking away from it. And we've been able to do that pretty well, which is just kind of cool. And I think more motivating to figure out different avenues so that we can kind of figure out what next year looks like as well, because we want to try to incorporate it so it's not such a polarizing experience of like, hey, we're all online and this is what you have to do. So we're trying to figure out how we can weave those things so it's not just such a traumatic experience of like, sorry, we're just online. So anyways, that's all I have.
Kayleen, will you say tell everybody the age of your kids and the 4 structures that you have going on so that they have a picture of what CFY is?
Yeah, so we work with kids from 14 to 19. They really just have to be enrolled in high school or just have to be high school age. And then you're saying the structures, what do you mean by that?
That you have, because I was a mentor there, so that there's individual 101, family group.
Oh, yeah.
And mentor training on site.
Yeah, so our program is really, I don't want to say like, it's very impacted by this switch to being virtual because we do have so many different layers of community that are built into the structure. So the students are getting paired up with a one-on-one mentor, so they have their one mentor. But then they also get put into what's called family groups. And those are like smaller groups within the community that have different mentors and students a part of that. And so we do different like competitions between family groups and different types of like camaraderie and like, that kind of thing. So you're getting connected with not just your mentor, but with other mentors within your family group. And then beyond that, there's a community of just mentors where we do mentor-only trainings. And those have been switched to online, which has been really fun. And then our students have like a student workshop where they are the mentors and the students are also a part of that workshop. So there's a couple different layers there, but it's definitely trying to figure out what works best for everyone, but still trying to, like I said, kind of have an umbrella where it's like hitting all the marks and still being able to kind of do into that.
Yeah. And just for intensity as well, because I had experience there, is that then just for clarity, all 4 of those structures, if you will, are happening every month. It's not like there's a family group one quarter and something else. They're each one of those 4 things happens every month.
Yeah, so just similar to like how a month has 4 weeks, every week is alternate between those 4 different structures. So one week is like a mentor only workshop. The next week is a one-on-one with your student. The week after is a family group. And then the week after is like the student workshop where like everybody's all in one place. And that's like, 90 people in one space, where we have some kind of type of programming or some kind of lesson plan, and then like some type of game, and then obviously food.
Thanks, Kayleen.
Yeah.
Thank you. And I want to just recognize that we are past our time. So thank you, everyone. I'm not leaving right now, but thank you for staying past the time. And I want to give a quick shout out to all of you who have your camera on, who aren't even speaking. I just think it's nice of you that,
Yeah, it's really cool.
And it helps me feel less quarantined. So thank you.
I've never seen Robin before. I don't think I've ever met you, Robin. It's so amazing. Talked to you so many times.
Oh, I think you're muted, Robin.
Oh.
There you go.
Yeah. We met a long time ago.
That's long.
Long time.
That's great.
Really quickly, Janet, did you want to go over the Rainier athlete form? Do we have time for that?
No, I don't. Well, I'm going to say one thing about it. I think Rainier Athletes is a program in the Rainier Valley. They do athletic things, and they're
in Bellevue.
So they were, if you pull that up a little bit, it'll jog my memory. So they're finding other adults, like to do stuff with them, to guide kids in working out, and professionals talking to them, as well as, if you go down to that other part, Vic, keep going. So stop. They have been reaching out and finding other sources locally as well. I think particularly CIS and Bailey, you were talking about structures that are already built into your collaborations, so that you have the schools and like the Gonzaga food and stuff. And so I think Rainier Athletes created a relationship with Bellevue LifeSpring that I think they hadn't had before. And the other thing about this particular document, when I talked to Jesse Franklin at Rainier Athletes about doing this, he had a conflicting meeting, but I really liked how succinct and sort of clear it was for this document that people had on their website. So that was the main thing I wanted to pull up about that. And obviously for undocumented families and kids, what that looks like as well. So that's, yeah. And I mean, yeah, so it's just a broad piece. Thanks, Vic.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so I want to thank everyone for sharing today. It's nice to see everyone grouping up and working together. And if anyone has any ideas, I know I say this every time and I'll continue to, if you have any ideas about topics that you think would be beneficial for us all to discuss, then email me. Thank you everyone for the feedback that you've been sending me. It definitely motivates Janet and I, so thank you.
Yeah, and we just, I'm sorry, and I want to say, I think next week's is group mentoring. Karen Orlock, from Bellevue School District is really doing, I mean, their whole structure is groups, and they're high school kids, but to go back a little bit more to what you were talking about, Kayleen, and if not only if you're already doing that for your structure, but what kinds of things that is, so that that sense of community that you address, Kayleen, is present, as well as one-offs. Sorry. And I see, Robin, you had a question or
Yeah, well, I just, I have a program that's just me part-time and no resources, like money, except for what I get paid. But I wanted to at least, offer up 111 for people who don't know about it. 211 is a number that anyone could call for resources. Mm-hmm. If they might need help with rent or food, or they need a wheelchair, or they're just general questions about COVID-19.
Yeah.
And so that's a free resource to offer anyone, even us.
Yeah. Thanks, Robin. Vic, will you do one more thing and pull up the Schools at Washington spreadsheet, which is something everybody can look at. Still, Schools at Washington has regular calls about COVID and youth development programs, as well as this really in-depth spreadsheet, which I got a little lost in, I must say. But as I looked through some of the things, there were, I could get to the tab. If you go like to engaging youth, each one just show that there's tabs and different topics. Go to local immediate needs. I mean, you can scroll through those things, but you'll have to copy and insert the link for some of those things. I think there's good stuff there. You just have to search through it, and it's one of those things. It's like, whoa, there's a lot of stuff there. So, just saying.
Wow. Yeah. Thank you. Okay. And then, are there any other questions, any other comments before we go?
Just thank you so much, everybody, for joining. I think the head nodding and seeing you is really cool. I miss your cat, Jolynn. And so everybody's cups, it's more connecting than I had before forever. Mentor Washington, just so cool. And how delightful to see your faces at this time. And thanks, Vic, for a great job of getting this all organized. And thanks for presenters.
Yeah, thank you to all the speakers. You are appreciated. So see you next time, guys.
Thanks, everyone. See ya.
Thank you.
Thanks.